Welcome to Shop Talk Live, episode number 260. Today we have friend of the show, Fine Woodworking Digital Ambassador, and newly appointed editor of Lost Art Press, Megan Fitzpatrick, on. And if I'm honest, sometimes this show is really just a guilty pleasure of mine, and this one is no exception. I had a lot of questions that came in that I wanted to hear Megan's perspective on, including I wanted to hear her talk about workbenches because she's got a pretty unique take on workbenches. So be prepared for a lot of workbench talk, a lot of hand tool talk, and all around good time with Megan and associate editor Barry Dima. Before we get started, we are finishing up in the next week or so, going to be putting the final touches on issue 296 of Fine Woodworking Magazine. And the best way of getting Fine Woodworking Magazine is by becoming an unlimited member. You get access to everything on the website, tons and hours of long-form videos, and all of the magazines. You get access to the complete archive of Fine Woodworking Magazine and the complete illustrated guide book series as well. So if you're interested in that, head on over to finewoodworking.com/members and sign up for a free 2-week trial today. I get a lot of emails from people saying that they're unlimited members because of the podcast, and I can't tell you how much that means. It's the best way I can think of to support the podcast. Thank you, sincerely. All right, here's Megan, Barry, and me. What did I see? I just saw, I was eating lunch, and I was watching This Old Tony video, which is, he's a machinist on YouTube. And he was doing a welding demonstration, and he said something like, I'm not a real welder, just a stunt welder. And it got me thinking, like, that's me. I'm not a real woodworker. I'm just a stunt woodworker. Or I'm just a stunt videographer. Or
Do you know that Roy Underhill story after he gave a live demo? He gave a live demo, and I don't know if he cut himself or, like, blew through a mortise, like something.
Well, he cut himself. We know that.
He always cuts himself.
Or something or maybe afterward. After the talk, I think a person came up and like they were looking at the joint or whatever, looking at the work he did during the talk, like while he was distracted entertaining. And the person said, "Oh, you're not a real woodworker. You're just a TV woodworker."
He's actually a very good woodworker.
Right, yeah.
Not when he's, I mean, it's hard when you are completely distracted to get it perfect. So
yeah.
I've heard that about him, but it's not true. I've seen his house. I've seen his real work. It's great, though.
But he's the master of playing the part that needed to be played at a given time.
Absolutely.
What was that like being on the show?
Wow, it was so long ago. I barely remember. I think my hair was still red, and I was like 20 pounds lighter. So it was some time ago. But no, it was a lot of fun. It's as I'm sure everybody probably knows, it's one take. So it's straight through. There's no breaks. So they do like a run through, maybe 2 if you need to, a practice round, and then they record it twice. And one of those is the one that gets used. So
they don't edit between the 2.
No, it is literally straight through. It's like 23 minutes or 24 minutes.
Yeah.
It's the Underhill oneer.
Yeah. And that's why everything's moving so fast and why he cuts himself a lot. And so it was awfully nice of him to have me on. It was I was on with Peter Follensby doing
that's right.
Elizabethan joint stool or Jacobean, however you want to call it. Anyway, it was
Jacobine. I submit Jacobine.
You submit Jacobine?
I submit Jacobine.
I'm going with whatever Megan says on this.
I adore Jacobine. When I hear Jacobine, like I just get warm inside. I love it.
Okay, early modern. There you go. That's the scholarly term.
Identify that one, suckers. Early modern.
Well, that's what I taught, early modern drama. So my PhD work was in. So very exciting. Anyway, nothing to do with woodworking, except that there are joint stools. I'm sure I've said that before in Shakespeare. So moving on.
This is the only place you can get this information. Yeah.
Woodworking and Shakespeare.
So I sent you questions.
You did about workbenches. I was
all of a sudden it was like
workbenches.
Well, and then it was kind of on theme because you just got a new workbench.
I did just get a new workbench.
Yeah, you did.
But
I was going to
now,
build one, but I did not.
Well, so we'll get to that. But I decided last minute I thought about a question we've been getting a lot, and I was like, I want to hear Megan's take on this.
Oh dear.
Yeah. So,
So this
one's
is like a surprise question.
surprise
right?
Pop
question.
quiz hot shot.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we've had a few different answers on this, but I think your perspective would be different than what we've had.
42. The
This
answer
one's
is 42.
from Rich.
Sorry.
A local woodworking professional alluded me to the virtues of the skew block plane, including that of fitting a tenon to a mortise. I purchased the plane, and after nearly a year of heavy use, I'm extremely satisfied. Perhaps naively, I believe the skew plane obviates the need for a shoulder plane. Have you all used the skew block plane? And if so, do you believe that there's a functional limitation when contrasted with a shoulder plane?
Yes, I do believe there is a functional limitation.
Okay, give.
Oh,
What?
you want to know what it is? You asked a yes or no question, Ben. The block plane has a larger mouth. The shoulder plane takes a much smaller bite, so it's a lot cleaner. I probably, unless I had to, if I had a shoulder plane and a skew block plane, I would still use the shoulder plane to cut up, to trim the cheek of it. No, not the cheek. The edge part of the tenon, the part that shows up at the top. I probably wouldn't want to use a block plane for that because it would be more likely to tear out. The small mouth of the shoulder plane gives you much finer control, takes a much smaller bite, but that also keeps you from effing it up as quickly. So, I mean, I would still, if all I had was the skew block or any block, yeah, sure, I'd use that. But
well, the question that we get asked a lot is, well, how do you feel about somebody trying to cover the bases, 3 different bases by buying a skew block?
I like tools that are dedicated to a certain operation. I think that, yeah, if that's what you can afford, then absolutely do it. But if you can afford it, I prefer a tool dedicated to one thing because it does a better job of that one thing. I mean, I say that like a jack plane can be used for all kinds of stuff, but I like a shoulder plane for cleaning up, shoulders of tenons. Oh, right. That's what that little piece is called, the shoulder. Sorry. I love a skew rabbet plane for cutting a rabbet, but I wouldn't want to use that for anything else, really. And the reason I don't like the rabbeting block plane or a skew block plane is because the blade does come all the way out to the edges. I cut myself almost every time, usually because I'm talking and demonstrating. When I'm using the skew rabbet, when I'm fencing it underneath, I stick my finger into that blade that sticks out.
Yeah.
And if you're using a block plane that sticks out on either side or any other tool for a regular, if you will, block plane operation, I don't know about anyone else, but I would absolutely grab that blade and cut myself. No question. So
that all makes sense.
So for several reasons, I prefer a tool dedicated to a specific job if it's a specialty operation.
Okay, so what are you using to? Well, I guess I know the answer is depends, right? But what's your favorite tool for fitting a tenon?
You know the answer to that.
I am asking you because I think you're the first person who we've had on the show who will say a router plane.
It is a router plane. Very good.
All right. Yes.
Hey, I know I've written about that before. So why do I like the router plane?
No, explain the virtues of fitting a tenon with a router plane, because you're the only one who's like a router plane champion that we've had on lately.
Wow, so. If I'm the only one, I must not be right about that. That's a little scary, but I like the router plane because I'm not a very good woodworker, and it allows me to fix my mistakes. No, seriously, if the router plane, because it's got the not the fence, but the support on either side, you drop that blade down to your finished depth and you can clean it off. You flip the thing over, you rest the router plane bottom on the same supports, clean off the other side. Your tenon is dead centered. It has to be because the plane itself, the plane body is holding that blade at the same level. So it's easier. It takes less concentration. Can I clean up a tenon with a shoulder plane or a rabbet plane or a regular old plane? Sure. But it's easier with a router plane. I can pay less attention and still get it right.
I don't think I've ever made that connection that with a router plane, if you do it that way, flipping it over, you're going to wind up with a centered tenon.
Yep. Of course, that's only useful if your mortise is also centered.
Well, yeah, but yeah. Huh.
That's why. Okay. That's one of the reasons why, I guess.
I like it.
Okay. And it's just a fun tool to use. So
They are.
I was just getting ready to sell mine on eBay, and now I'm like having second thoughts. And as I'm looking at it going, I'm going to sell this. I'm going to get like a good 100. In my head, it would go, Megan Fitzpatrick. Like, no, shh, quiet. Megan Fitzpatrick. And so this podcast you're now at the front.
Well, you also were here watching me use it to clean up the bottom of a dado. You saw
I know. That was very satisfying. I loved taking those photos.
It's fun. So
the only thing not fun about a router plane is sharpening them.
Yep.
Well, okay, that's true. I'll give you that. But it's not that bad. You just hang it off the edge of the bench is what I do. So that it's, I don't have to F around with things.
Yeah.
I'm trying very hard not to actually curse. I'm
waiting for you to start spelling out the words. Like, get past the first letter and give me the next three.
I'm just worried that Barry gets too comfortable. Because then it's...
Yeah.
Well, I'm in the middle of stock prep, so I'm just in a bad mood anyway. What were we talking about? Oh, router plane. Don't sell your router plane, Barry.
All right.
You might need it.
Fine.
I want a little router plane.
Those are cool.
I have one of those too. I also had the itty bitty little one that Lee Valley made.
Yeah.
It's so cute. I used it once when I was playing around with some inlay and stringing, which I've done like once, but I thought, oh, hey, this will fit in there. And it did. It's so cute. I don't really use that one. I admit it.
Wait, and that's the one with like proper wooden handles, right? It's like a legit Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Oh yeah. All their Christmas tools, those little miniature ones, they're all usable.
I forgot about that one.
They're all so cool.
Because there's one that looks like, is it the Stanley 171?
Oh, I don't know my numbers. Now you're just going to embarrass me.
It doesn't have the angled wooden handles. It has like vertical wings on the base.
Sure. I don't know. I could look it up if you want. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. It's like cast into the body, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what you have?
No, the Stanley version.
Oh, okay.
That and a big one. I was going to sell the big one. The little one's nice for hinges.
It is. I agree. I use it for hinges all the time. Yeah.
All right. Wow, that veered off.
That went off track, didn't it? Right, I'm good at that.
All right, workbench questions.
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's start with Ron's. I love the show and magazine. I'm considering my first real woodworking bench. I'm considering both purchasing or building a custom one, which I would like to cover that aspect.
Sure.
My question is, do you prefer round or square dog holes, and why? I've seen both styles of holes on popular, well-regarded benches for sale, so it doesn't seem like a universal preference. All right, first off, let's cover, you just bought a workbench.
Yeah, I feel a little embarrassed about it, frankly, not going to lie. Yes, we bought a workbench because both Chris and I are really, really busy, and it's not that we don't know how, especially Chris. I've built 2 or 1.5, I guess. He's built 100. We can build workbenches. There really isn't much left to prove. I cannot build one by myself because I cannot personally pick up the wood by myself. I got my own fit in my car. Yeah. I'm a weakling. I'm old. I didn't want to do it. So I need Chris's help, right? So I'm the editor at Lost Art Press now as of like what?
Yeah, by the way.
A week ago or something?
Yeah, a week ago. I don't know.
Or
so I have a lot of work to do here now. I mean, I always had a lot of work, but I have more work to do. Chris has a lot of work to do. Both of us not doing the Lost Art Press work and working on a workbench. If you add up the hours that we lose doing that and what we make an hour, if you will, it just made sense to buy it.
Yeah.
That's why. And frankly, there's a couple of good commercial ones available now. When Chris started building workbenches basically for a living, 20 years ago, there really weren't any good workbenches, what I would call good workbenches, on the market available. So there really wasn't much choice up until fairly recently. You know, Lee Nielsen started making a good one, and then Benchcraft started making, and there's other ones I'm forgetting about, I'm sure, but there just wasn't a choice. You had to build your own. Now you have a choice. Do you want to spend your time and money doing other things, or do you really want to build a workbench? And I am a little embarrassed that I didn't build it myself. It is, but the Benchcrafted one is so very close to what I would have built that I'm like, oh, okay. Chris talked me into it, and he didn't want to help me, basically.
and Nancy wrote a blog for us one time, and like just laid it out. She was like, I can't afford to build a workbench.
Right, exactly.
I absolutely, like, if you're a pro, you know, and your living is being in the workshop, albeit writing or building, right? And her living, same deal. But if you're a pro, you can't afford to build a workbench. If you're an enthusiast and you want to, like, you know, slap that bench and say, I built this. Hell yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah. And I'm glad I built a couple.
Yeah.
Because I feel good about that. But
yeah,
I'm like trying to do the math here on, okay, so I would have had to have worked, it cost me about 1 week of work to buy that bench.
Yeah.
So
that's kind of a no-brainer for y'all.
Yep.
So I have to know, though, can I have your LVL bench? No, I mean, what happened to the LVL bench? Why is that not?
Did that slip out?
Sorry.
Sure.
I've just always looked at it and like just been like, oh, that's a sexy bench. I love the LVL look.
I love that bench too, and it's in my basement where I will use it with my other bench. Now I have
so it isn't cast aside.
Oh no.
Okay.
No, but the reason we replaced it, the reason I wanted to make a new one or get a new one, is because we also built the base out of LVL, and that was a mistake. The top in LVL is fabulous, dead flat, but the pressure of the leg vise pushed the top of it off of that LVL leg, because LVL compresses. It's supposed to. That's what it's made to do in earthquakes and stuff, right? It's supposed to move a little bit. The top was ripped and then flipped on its side and re-glued. So that thing is dead solid, heavy as all get out. I would absolutely use LVL for a top again. I either had to rebuild that base, though, so that we could shift the bench forward, so that it was coplanar with the front leg and the leg vise, or I had to get a new bench, one of the two. And by the time we looked at rebuilding the base, and I've already junked up the underside of it where it connects to the leg, because I've tried 8 times to fix that problem. It's not a problem for me. I'm used to working with it, but it made it a little bit more difficult for students to use. And that's one of the benches students use. I don't want people to come in here and have to mess around with our equipment or have somebody who has trouble that other people aren't having, because that's just something else you have to learn to deal with. And that's not the best learning environment. So I was fine with my bench as it was, but we wanted the bench to be perfect and not cause additional issues for people who weren't familiar with the workarounds. You get used to anything, but you don't want to pay to take a class and have to deal with a buckety bench, right? So that's why. But I love that bench. I still do. And I'm now have another one at home. Yay. Because, you know, I'm doing house stuff at home. So it's nice to have a much bigger bench. The other one's only 6 feet long because it had been on my second floor at my old house. So it's great to have a bigger one. So
nice. I've always I think I read your blog or something on the LVL bench, and it seeped in, okay, it's great for a top, not great for the rest of it. But then it doesn't make financial sense anymore for me, because I would have needed to find somebody. I think I've tried to talk Barry into building an LVL bench with me, because you buy one LVL and that's enough for 2 bench tops or whatever. Basically. And so I tried with my brother for a little while, and you know, somebody out there is going to partner up with me. And
you need to tell them this is that I have never had to flatten that bench top, not once. I've had it since 2009. It's never been flattened. It's never needed it. It's still dead flat. So right there is a really good selling point.
Yeah.
You know?
That's awesome. Okay,
Yeah.
so does it have round dog holes, or does it?
It
have
does
square?
have round dog holes.
Okay.
I personally would not build a bench with square dog holes. I'd be fine buying a bench with square dog holes, but it's a lot easier to make round dog holes. To go back to the question that was asked.
Yeah.
If you're building your own bench, I would absolutely choose round dog holes. There's a couple of answers to that. Doing the square ones is harder because if you look inside them, they're not just a straight square. They've got those, the little clippy things on the side of the dogs that expand. So those holes are at a bit of an angle underneath the top of them. I'm not making sense. They're just a lot harder to make. So if you want square ones, pay somebody else to do it who's got the machinery and the setup and has it perfected. Can you do it? Absolutely you can, but it's going to add time and trouble. Also, there aren't a lot of accessories available for square dogs.
Yeah.
They do a nice job of holding things if you're using a tail vise. Unlike round ones, they're not going to turn around on you. Then again, most people, in my experience, after they've gotten a little bit of woodworking under their belts, don't need the end vise or the wagon vise or a tail vise anymore. So then it becomes kind of a non-issue. The goal for me anyway is to plane against a single point, at least on narrow boards, so that I don't have to clamp things down, so I don't have to mess around with a vise. It's just faster. I don't like work holding's the hardest thing, I think. And you probably don't even need that tail vise after a couple of years, in which case you probably don't need the square dogs. I'm sorry, back to what I was saying. There aren't a lot of accessories for square dogs. All of the Lee Valley stuff fits a 3/4 hole. There's a lot of other 3/4 hole type stuff. You can use a 3/4 dowel and make all the dogs you want for really cheap. For the square ones, you pretty much have to buy the stuff, have somebody make the stuff for you. So that's why I don't mind square dogs, but I just find the round ones are more versatile for commercial stuff to go in them.
So you just bought a workbench though?
Yep.
Round or square?
They're round.
Okay. Do you have a tail vise?
No.
Really?
No, all it is, I wish I should have done this on my laptop. I could have taken it out there and showed it to you. Sorry. I'll send you a picture. No, it's the bench. It's the Benchcrafted Classic one. All it has is a leg vise. That's it. And
that's okay.
And a planing stop. And we put the new Crucible planing stop in it. They're offering that, but I think that was the first one they had put in. That's all it has, and it's got the 1-inch 1-inch holes for the hold fast.
Okay, that was my next question.
So, yeah. I may or may not poke a few 3/4 holes in it, which with a router and an upcut spiral bit.
Yep.
Sorry. As opposed to doing it by hand. I've done it by hand. There's pictures of me on my blog at Rude Mechanicals Press doing it by hand on my pine bench at home. It's not pretty. You have to get up on the bench and anyway. So I would use a router to do that. But yeah, it's the 1-inch holes for the hold fast, because with the hold fast, the leg vise, and the single planing stop, I can hold most things and I don't need to use anything else. So, except for a doe's foot. That V-shaped piece of wood that you hold at the back of a board with one of the hold fasts, and you jam it up against the planing stop. And that's really all you need. It takes a little getting used to, but that's okay. I used it.
So you drill in holes or routing holes after the fact. It's like square dogs aren't just harder at the building stage. Like they're significantly harder if you want to add a dog later. It's just going, I want a hole
trying
here.
To do that.
Right. It's just, so I like round holes, just versatile, or no. Yeah. Like the bench becomes more versatile because you can go, I want one over here, please. And you just make it.
Yep. Swiss cheese.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that when somebody, it probably goes for if somebody builds the bench too. When somebody builds or buys a new bench, they might be so scared of drilling a hole in it. And I would assume that you're just like, I want to hold there right now. I'm doing it, and that's it. You know.
I might think about it for a couple of minutes with the new bench. On my old bench, no, I would just drill it.
Yeah. Okay. So what are the 3/4? What are the accessories I would assume that you're missing in the 3/4 inch world? Because you had just said that you might drill some 3/4.
I don't have a real problem planning against that stop using a doze foot, but again, because we're using it for students, one of the things I constantly did on my old bench, if I had a wide board, because there may not be enough room to use the doze foot and the hold fast and still have room to plane if, say, you're in a workbench class like tomorrow. So you have to make one of those L-shaped stops that drops down into the leg vise now, so that you can just jam wood up against it and it's fully supported all the way across. But what I used to do is I had 2 dog holes that were opposite each other, poke those up, slap a thin piece of oak against it, and that was the planing stop. And I got used to doing that, so I just have to think about different ways to work. So
and also that would then allow your leg vise to be available,
right?
Without moving anything,
right. And it's just so easy to pick that stick up and then throw it back under the bench when you're done. So I could see maybe wanting to add a dog or 2. I could possibly just add or just make some 1-inch dogs. I could do that too, but I can't remember without going to look at it whether or not there are 2 that are right across from each other. So I'd have to look, but I could drill a 1-inch hole if I really wanted to, I guess. But I suppose I should have thought of that and asked them to given them a perfect pattern. But what's a perfect pattern? It's going to change from day to day. So we just went with the standard one. That said, you can I went with the least expensive, I think, option available. It's real basic, but I think you can have them add a wagon vise. They make one. You can have them add other stuff. There's no reason you couldn't do that. And then Lee Nielsen's, I'm pretty sure, is 3/4 holes. Haven't seen one for a while because I haven't been to Lee Nielsen for a while, unfortunately, like everybody.
I just know that the bench I have with the stinking 1.25-inch dog holes.
1.25-inch?
Oh, it's the worst because you can't. I don't know if.
Where'd you get that?
It was like we're gonna throw it away bench at the old shop, and I was like, I need a bench. It's a flat surface.
That sounds like something someone does when they're really petty and they get fired. Like, you know what? I'm gonna drill some wacky
drill
holes
a bunch of in all the holes.
Yeah, right. That's ridiculous.
And I can't figure out, and it's a full grid across the whole top of it.
Of 1.25-inch holes.
And I think they were actually a little under 1.25 inch because I wound up having to, they were more than 1 inch. They were not 1.25 inch. So I wound up making a jig to drill them out 1.25 inch so I could just get an 1.25 inch dowel and make dogs for it.
Interesting.
Yeah. I would love to know what the reason was for it.
But you can make anything work, of course. Again, it's what you get used to.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's Thomas Stanglin. I'm not positive, but I think Stanglin works on the arts and crafts guy who does unbelievably good work. I'm almost certain he used to work on a door or a piece of plywood on sawhorses. So you can do good work on anything. You just have to get used to it.
Yeah.
It's easier. It's easier with a good bench.
Yeah, exactly.
For those of us like me who will take all the help you can get. So,
Yeah, but I mean, my other bench is a solid core door with plywood on top of it, and
there you go.
And I was able to make it in like 2 hours.
And it breaks down pretty easily.
Actually, it's built into the wall.
Okay.
So it does not move
break down.
one bit. It's the opposite. Yeah. All right. So this next question.
Wait. We haven't talked about Barry's nice new bench. That thing's pretty cool.
Oh, Barry's on all time scrum.
Okay, right.
No, yeah. You're what are you doing with dog holes on your?
I was round. And when Pekovic was here shooting it, He goes, so, we're going to need a measure drawing. And I said, yeah, no problem. I have a SketchUp. And he goes, what about the dog holes? Where'd you put them? I was like, kind of wherever I pleased. You were. And so I had to really distill, like, for the drawing, which ones I'm going to show. Because some were like, I was carving over here that day. And so I wanted a hole there and over there for the.
Yeah.
It was like, how do I not make this terribly, terribly wacky? But like for instructional purposes. But it just gets back to the point where when you need a hole, you make a hole, and it takes no time. When I got that bench, though, so that bench top is from a previous bench and it didn't have any holes in it. So I got it. I was like, this is ridiculous. I need holes for my holdfast. And I spent, I don't know, way too much time. I was sweating by the end, drilling holes in my bit and brace.
Oh, yeah.
Through 2 1/4 inch maple. It's like, what am I doing with? And I stopped every time that like a bead of sweat would land on the bench. I'm like, nope, time to pause.
Right.
So it can be exhausting, but it's still, I would not do square. I would buy a bench with square dog holes, but round all day.
Right. What you just said reminds me of, I got a question, if I may, about the Dutch tool chest, the tool rack in the back.
Oh, yeah.
It might have the location wrong in the article. I'm not positive.
Barry.
No, it would be my fault. Not Barry's. I'm sure.
I'm thinking you're outing us on the podcast.
No, well, I don't want people to make the mistake that this reader did, or that I did. I'm not sure. But that what you said about for instructional purposes reminds me, you need to hold fast in a certain place. So you drill the dog hole, right? That tool rack, I need it in a certain place. So that's where I put it. But you should always match up the location of your stuff and the size of your builds and where your hold fast holes go based on the work you do, not based on something that's in the magazine or a book or whatever. Just think for a minute.
Like I think I spaced my holes to let my hold fast overlap a little bit. So there was never, but like those are my hold fasts, I don't know.
Yeah. Right, exactly. So there's a difference. We all teach stuff, right? And we all write articles. So here's the way that I teach you to do it. And it works, but you might find that you need a slightly different setup yourself. But just think about it before you just blindly move forward, I guess is my point. So.
Yeah.
Well, I find that, and I think this speaks to like anytime we get do you have a cut list question?
Right.
Or whatever. It's like you're over planning right now. Cat for the YouTube audience.
That's right.
But like if you're worried about where the dog holes are going to go, or it's good to have an idea, but you need to figure out where your best place for the tool rack is, what your chisels requirements are to put in that tool rack.
Exactly.
But some people really like to have that information going forward.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm not saying you shouldn't provide it, and I provide it. But
you're just going to possibly build yourself into rebuilding that tool rack if you don't have the same tools.
Take the screws out and move it down or up an inch. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal. But I don't know. Somebody asked me about it, and I said, "Well, it's possible I got it in the wrong location, but that was arranged for my chisels, not your chisels."
Yeah.
My dog holes and again, so I have the new bench. Are the dog holes where I want them, or I guess they're not dog holes? I don't know yet. It might need more.
Yeah.
So.
How long do you think it takes to learn a bench or whatever?
Well, I guess it depends on how much you're using it. I expect by the end of next week with the students working on, I'll know exactly what I need to modify or add or whatever. So.
Totally. Awesome. SketchUp is a versatile computer program that lets you create 3D models of your project, allowing you to figure out proportions, dimensions, and joinery with great accuracy. In our new online course taught by renowned SketchUp expert Dave Richards, you'll get all the tools you need to start designing and modeling your projects in 3D. Head on over to foundationsofwoodworking.com/SketchUp and join the interest list to be notified as soon as registration opens. Again, that's foundationsofwoodworking.com/SketchUp. All right. So this question is from Devin, and Devin is, I got to find his Instagram handle because I really like Devin's feed. That's why. Devin's Instagram handle is Honky Tonk Slim.
I don't think I know him.
Isn't that a musician?
Well, if it isn't, it needs to be.
It ought to be, yeah.
But Honky Tonk Slim, like, that's on that list of, oh, that handle's available? Yes. Thank you very much.
Oh, there we go.
Devin's awesome.
Now I'm following Devin.
Devin's obsessed with making chairs.
Also, he lives in somewhere it snows a lot. Okay.
Yes. All right. But Devin asks, I've only flirted with panel saws before I got a table saw. I had thought I was pretty good with my hand saws, but I've become obsessed with chair making, and this has led to dust collecting on a lot of those saws. I've since gotten rid of my table saw. Gasp. He wrote that. I believed it. For space-saving measures. So I took out my panel saw, and I noticed that whenever I pull the saw back, it wobbles back and forth. For as much as I appreciate the great sound of a big saw wiggling, I wonder if that's only good for the Foley artists of the world. Is this wobble an indication of bad sawing technique? In theory, would one not introduce any lateral movement, eliminating this phenomenon?
It shouldn't be wobbling.
Okay, so it's Devin.
Well, maybe. I mean, there's a couple of reasons it could be. Maybe it's binding in the cut. Maybe the wood's closing up on it, and so he has to pull harder, and it's getting stuck. There's a couple where the wood is wet or something, so it's grabbing at it, and that makes it harder to just smoothly come back.
Okay.
But okay, this is going to look idiotic. But so basically, he needs to make sure that his arm is clearing the side of his body so that he's just moving straight up and down from the shoulder.
I'm going to make this a GIF.
Shouldn't be any like that. Your wrist shouldn't be moving. Your elbow shouldn't be moving other than up and down. It should just be a smooth motion.
Okay.
But yeah, sometimes the saw does buckle when you pull it back because it gets stuck because there's case hardening or whatever closing up on it or something. But it's not the end of the world. It's not going to hurt the saw. But you're not going to get a smooth cut, and it slows you down. So.
And it sounds like an annoying noise, right? So.
Well, I don't know if you like that kind of thing. Some people like the saw. So.
Would it be indicative of like not enough set on a saw if it's grabbing, or like could it be a sharpening thing? Do you think, or?
I don't know enough about saw sharpening to answer that. Most panel saws are taper ground, right? So they're
that's right.
Top and the bottom. So I guess it could be if there were not enough set, it could be grabbing, I guess. But I mean, wood closes up all the time. You've seen it on the table saw, surely. You know, that's scary, right? Yeah. You don't have a splitter. And you don't have a splitter when you're sawing by hand, so it can easily close up on you. Also, if the weight of it, like if you get too long into the cut, if you're cutting a long piece, that weight of it's just going to pull it down if it's not fully supported. So there's so many reasons that could be happening. If it always happens, though, then yeah, Devin, it's your fault. Practice more. I don't know what to tell you.
So just to reiterate for our audio only audience, you want that arm to be when it's
clearing your hip or your belly or whatever. Okay. Yeah, it should be hitting your body. You should not having to be twisting your elbow out. It should be a smooth motion. The only up and down motion should be coming from your shoulder. There should be no part of your body in the way of the motion of that saw.
So that elbow staying in line with the saw plate, I guess, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
Well, I mean, that's the goal. Can't always do it, but
Barry, you're I don't know. Considering your table saw woes of late, maybe you're back to a handsaw guy.
Not for long rips. I try to avoid those at all costs because I have almost no experience with like Western panel saws. Okay. But I remember ripping by hand was really difficult. So one of my strategies was just rip wide and then plane to your line, or grab a hatchet or like a chisel and split the thing off. Yeah. Because just ripping at some point is just a huge bummer, you know? Like it either hurts or it takes forever. So I tried to find ways around it. There's on Wilbur Pan's blog, he had a photo and I printed it out because I love it. and it's, I think, a illustration of a Chinese woodworker smiling, and he's holding a board, and he has a hatchet in one hand, and there's a saw lying in the background. Like, I'm not ripping. I'm gonna chop to width and then plane it, because nobody wants to do that, unless you need that offcut. Oh. That's all I got. So just, rip wide and plane to width is my thing. Yeah.
Well, I don't know anybody who tries to saw directly to the line. I mean, I try to get within like an eighth of it, but I only do that if you're paying me to do it by hand. Normally I use the table saw.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
or if I'm up on my third floor working on something and I have to go all the way down to the basement with a long board to cut it on my table saw, I'm not going to do that. I will, in fact, rip it by hand. But typically, I just use the machine. But it's nice to not have to. So
yeah.
Years and years ago, I made a just like a 2x12 saw bench. Just probably exactly to your specifications. I measured my knee or whatever and did that whole thing and I used that for cross cutting and with a handsaw. And then, I just started meandering into table saw and all that. And I stopped using it for that. But the thing that I always hung on to it for was working on the house, because I never had a good chop saw. And it was just always easier for me to just have that saw bench in the room with me and a handsaw and cut whatever I needed. And it's just been, over the past 10 years, just been degrading and degrading and degrading. But it's one of those things I can't give up on. So now it's
like one of the 7 that are in my basement.
But now it just sits out by my chicken coop, and that's where I put the chicken feed to. And I can't give up on it. I can't throw that thing out or burn it. But yeah.
If only there were an article that would show you how to build another one.
Yeah, but then I got to put it somewhere.
Oh, okay.
All right. Let's see. We've probably got time for one more. What do you want to do, Megan?
Huh? What do I want to do?
Which question, if we have one more?
Isn't there only one more question?
I've got 2 more.
Oh,
the workbench top and the mahogany.
The mahogany's hard.
I know. It breaks my heart. I almost don't even want to address it.
The answer to the mahogany is no, you shouldn't use that for a workbench top. That's too pretty. Don't do that.
Okay. That was quick. All right. So this question, Matt, that was your question, if you're listening.
Sorry, Matt.
Megan says don't do it. Barry and I agree. All right.
Well, I mean, if you have only mahogany and you have tons of mahogany, okay, but you could also just re-glue it and make a tabletop from it, or a cutting board, or something that people actually see rather than your workbench, because mahogany is pretty. Yeah. Anyway,
especially he had nice mahogany.
Yeah.
All right, from David. My woodworking buddies often bounce questions and ideas off each other. Sounds great. My friend Sri sent this question around to a few of us. One of the group suggested that he send it to Shop Talk Live, but I don't think he's going to, so I'm sending it on his behalf. And here's the question. Gentlemen, a question about how to most easily get my workbench top level. My bench top is about 1 1/4 inch thick. It has a distinct concavity about 3/16 to 1/4 inch deep towards one end, which has persisted for at least a year now. I don't think I can flatten the top by hand planing or with a router sled for fear that the top will get too thin. Do you folks think I can pour tabletop epoxy / resin to fill in the depression instead, essentially making the tabletop thicker with self-leveling epoxy or resin, and thus getting rid of the concavity? And then David says, after some back and forth, the group thought that epoxy wouldn't hold up very well to the rigors of a workbench. So it was suggested that he pour a thin layer of epoxy just to level it, and then screw a layer of MDF on top. We felt that although the MDF might not hold up over time, it would be easier and cheaper to replace than epoxy would be. Also felt that the MDF would be a better choice than Baltic birch plywood, which would dent more easily. This is like thinking outside the box.
Also, this is weird. How did you get a 1/4 inch concavity
That's
in
rough.
one First of
Why
all,
didn't I think of that? Wow.
That is.
I'd be mad at the maker.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think it had the brand name in it, so we won't talk about
I'm leaving it off. I'm leaving it off.
Yeah, that's fine. But so if you're gonna buy a bench, buy a good bench, first of all.
Mhm.
There's a reason there's a reason I like a thicker bench top, because you can flatten it, and also it does a better job of holding onto hold fast, and it's more stable, and it's heavier, and so many reasons. But hey, kitty. So don't buy a cheap bench. Either build your own or buy a good one of the two. But now that you have that problem, how can you fix it? I think that pouring epoxy is probably a crazy thing to do. That should only be on river tables, of course. If it were me, I would actually use 3/4 Baltic birch. So some plywood without voids in it. I don't care if it dents a little bit. So what? I'd much rather the material dent than the work that I'm doing on it. The other option is to just work at the other end of your bench. You know, that's certainly a possibility. But there's a traditional appliance for benches called a planing sled or something like that. I'd have to look it up. I haven't looked at it for a while. A planing table, something that you lift up on top of your workbench.
Oh, yeah.
That way you don't have to, it's not called what is that thing called? But you know
bet you
what
it's in some lost art press book somewhere, right?
It probably is. It was in some other magazine at one point too, before I joined the staff. But it's a traditional appliance, and you just pull it out, and it's a flat thing that you build. You know, it's like a box, basically a torsion box, basically, that sits on top of your workbench, and it's always flat. That way, your workbench doesn't have to be that flat, and it overcomes problems like that. That said, that's a pretty big dip in your bench to work around all the time. Right. So if it were me, I wouldn't even worry about the void, because it probably doesn't go all the way across. It's probably just in the middle where it's unsupported out at the end. If I had to guess, I'd just slap a piece of 3/4 ply on there, cut it to size, screw it in place, and then you can flip it over and or put a new one on there if you need to. That would be the easiest, fastest fix, I think, that I can think of.
Yeah. All right. So less easy, less fastest. What if they flattened the bench and then put 3/4 inch ply over or whatever?
Sure, you could do that.
Would that? Okay.
I guess. I mean, I don't know how that bench is constructed. Is that a solid inch and what did he say? Inch and a quarter?
Inch and a quarter, I think. Yeah.
Is it a solid inch and a quarter? Is there a lip around it? I don't know. Well, actually, I do know that bench. I think it's a solid inch and a quarter. So yeah, you could flatten it, I guess, but why?
Okay.
I don't see the point.
What's your go-to method for flattening a bench?
Me?
Yeah. When you got it?
I asked Chris to do it. Are you kidding me?
Get you a Schwarz.
That's right. What you need is a good friend who likes to plane things. No, seriously. No, I just do it with a jack plane and then a jointer plane. And I don't bother with a smooth plane. But again, the bench that I've been using for the last 12 years has never needed flattening. I have had to flatten mine at home, but it's white pine, so it's really easy just to do with planes. Just the most important thing to remember is to plane off the back edge of it before you start going across the grain with your jack plane, so that you don't tear off the whole back edge.
Oh, so like do that chamfer on the
you don't blow out the backside, as we say. So.
When do you find, like, is there a measurement of that now the bench is not flat enough for you, or is it just when you struggle with it?
Well, again, I've been working on a bench for more than a decade. That's flattening. So ask me again in a few months. I don't know the answer to that. I have worked on benches that are not flat, and it can be annoying, but there are so many ways to fix that. Like if it's wobbling on one edge, you just shove a few shavings under it. Yeah. You use a wedge. Honestly, I'm a little lazy. If I can find an easy fix, like shoving some shavings under it or slapping some plywood on top and screwing it down or putting a wedge under it, I'm probably going to do that rather than flatten the bench until it gets to the point where every single operation requires some kind of workaround.
Yeah.
But once you spend more time finding a workaround than it would take to just fix the darn thing, I guess that's when I would suck it up and do it. I don't know. I'm going to have to flatten this one. I'm pretty sure. I don't know. The moisture content's pretty low though. So maybe not. We'll see. I mean, it's wood. It moves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Barry, have you ever flattened a bench?
Nope.
Me neither.
Yeah.
I have. It's not fun, but it needs to be done on occasion. So.
I should. The mine's a split top, and I just kind of ignore the back half. Like, you are not referenced for anything, but it'd be nice to have that, So
does it come apart? One of the nice things about a split top is you can run it through a jointer or a planer usually.
Yeah, I could do it at the new shop.
Seriously, that's one of the. I don't like a split top bench, but that is a benefit to it, right? Because it's only 12 inches wide. It fits through most lunchbox planers.
Ew. All right.
The only time I had to flatten something like that, I made a low bench or Roman. What do y'all call them? Roman?
Oh, that's right.
Roman bench, yeah.
Roman bench. But I was making it for Dave Fisher to use at Fine Woodworking Live, and he calls it a low bench, so I refer to it as a low bench.
Sure.
And there was two things about that applied to this episode. I didn't know where he wanted the dog holes, so I put them everywhere. And I probably spent like 3 hours drilling with like a brand new 3/4 inch brad point bit, drilling for it seemed like days. I was just going and going.
That was solid ash, right? That thing?
No, maple. I got it from Tatro. And but one thing I figured out the other day, I had to drill some 3/4 inch holes, is paraffin wax on the brad point bit. Night and day difference.
Or an upcut spiral bit in your router. I know everyone thinks I'm a hand tool woodworker, but I embrace machinery when it's useful.
Oh yeah.
I like doing joinery by hand. I don't like doing grunt work by hand.
Yeah. But this was like, I think it's 3 or 3.5 inches or something.
Yeah. Okay.
But then I just was able to take the whole thing over that 16-inch SEMI.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
right.
That was when I realized it would fit on that joiner. It was
You're like, yay!
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
you've wasted another hour.
We've wasted another hour of your hours, the listeners and Megan combined.
It's nice to take a break from stock prep. I'm happy to.
Well, good luck with your class. So you, how many board feet of pine have you been slugging?
That's like looking at your own death clock, dude. What's that? What's that question? Can you quantify your depression for us?
Sure. It's 500 board feet of white pine, right?
Whoa.
500 for a class.
Well, thereabouts. I mean, you have to order a fair amount extra with the white pine and the reason I'm using white pine, Eastern white this time, by the way, I usually use sugar pine. I can buy less sugar pine because it doesn't have very many knots in it. So it comes straight and clear, and it's easier to glue up because there isn't as much cutting around knots and stuff. But I had to order enough extra that I could cut around knots as much as possible, because while it's okay to have knots in the panels and stuff on the tool chest, and in fact the original one that Chris built for the book is white pine. So this is the OG material. I don't feel bad about that, but you do want the lid to have nice clear a nice clear look. All the rails and stiles for the lid, those need to be clear because you got to be able to put the joinery in them and stuff. So it was just a lot of working around the knots and stuff. But right now, the sugar pine that I would normally get is somewhere around $8 a board foot. It is more than cherry around here right now.
Oh,
that's
right.
Whoa.
And I don't want to pass that cost along to students. That would be insane. So it took me more time, but it's cost, it was like $1.80 a board foot. I had it surfaced and sent from North Carolina from Steve Wall Lumber, and God bless them, they did it quickly. I would prefer to use sugar pine just because it's easier on me.
$8 a board foot, though. Wow.
Right.
That's incredible.
This is a lot less than that. So, I mean, it honestly would have been cheaper to build it out of cherry than out of sugar pine now. In our area.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's why. So Yeah.
So next week you'll be guiding 6 students along making the anarchist tool chest.
Yep.
And everyone, you need to keep in mind that when you're taking a woodworking class, there's usually a week of prep that goes into it beforehand. A lot of times by the teacher. So like,
yeah, not always a week, but yeah, a couple days at least. And normally Chris helps me, which is very kind of him. He certainly doesn't have to, and I appreciate it greatly. But Chris is in Florida right now teaching a class, so I did it all myself, except for a couple panels. So. I'm not quite done yet, but that's okay. It'll all be all right. But normally I build one along with students, but having just finished one for a client, I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to build one this time.
Yeah.
I'm going to demonstrate on their stuff. Ooh, hang on just a second.
Yep. FedEx.
Sorry, I thought I heard FedEx.
All right. So is that a little extra stress though? Because if something goes wrong, you don't have like the teacher one to swap in. At the last minute?
Thanks for reminding me about that.
Sorry.
Ben's piling it on.
But you know what? All my students are always so good that I know that's not going to be necessary.
Well, good luck and Godspeed.
Also, because I'm not building one, I can pay a lot closer attention to them.
They're
not going to mess up because I'm not going to let them. So. They can't. So.
Well, thank you so much for coming on again.
Thanks for having me.
We'll have you on more. And where can Lost Art Press blog now, huh?
Lost Art Press. I mean, I still have my own. I'm still building furniture for commission work and stuff, but I'm here. I mean, I was always here anyway, all the time. So
it's not that big of a life shift.
No, it's not. Well, it is. I mean, I gave up some of my other freelance work, and I'm going to miss doing the Early American Industries Association.
Oh, I didn't think of that.
Yeah, I won't have time anymore, so I gave them notice. I'll stay on until they find someone to replace me because that's what you do. I'll miss doing that, but I'll be an interested reader of it now instead.
Yeah. So. Well, I was reading. I woke up and I was checking my email. I was reading Chris's blog about it. And I was very happy to see that line where she's still going to be writing for Fine Woodworking. If it's,
I mean, I hope so, but
heck yeah,
up to you guys. So.
No, we're more than happy to have you on.
I keep turning in my blog like at the last possible moment or a day late. I need to stop that. In fact, I think I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, sometime next Saturday I'm going to have to write one.
You know how behind we are on the other end of it, so don't worry about it.
Ben so many e-letters.
So it's all right, but I feel bad. I'm trained to meet deadlines, so when I don't meet deadlines, I get all
Eventually, so Katie, the new assistant digital editor, they're catching up, and eventually it's going to start being like, we can get it right out the door. So yeah.
All right. Well, I'm sure something will come up worth writing about during class next week. Like,
good luck.
Make sure I hope it's up because you don't have any extra wood. Thanks.
All right, Megan. We'll see you next time.
All right, I'll back to my prep then.
Did you have something, Barry? Sorry.
No. This is just my goodbye face.
Oh, okay.
It's your resting goodbye face.
Yeah.
All right. See you later.
Later.
Bye.
Well, that does it for this episode of Shop Talk Live. Thanks again to Megan for being a part of the show and answering my stupid questions. Again, head on over to findwoodworking.com/members to sign up for an unlimited membership. And check the show notes or the YouTube doobly-doo to get more information about our SketchUp class coming up with Dave Richards. If you have any questions you'd like answered on the show, please send them into shoptalk@taunton.com. If you're watching on YouTube, click that thumbs up button. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. Thank you for listening.
You want to clap?
Yeah. Megan!